My name is Megan Gignac. I work on project management for the Energy Agency of Upper Austria. We are a regional energy agency. And as Sylvia has mentioned, over the last 3 decades in the region of Upper Austria, we have supported over 300 energy performance contracting projects. And I will share some of our experience and lessons learned regarding energy performance contracting and how projects are developed and implemented in Upper Austria. So our agency, the Energiesparverband, we are, as I mentioned, a regional energy agency. We're the central institution for all topics regarding sustainable energy, renewables, and energy efficiency in Upper Austria. We were founded in the early 90s, so we have a few decades behind us of work in our region. And we're a public independent organization, and our day-to-day work really is working on the energy transition, achieving climate neutrality in all sectors in the region of Upper Austria. We offer services to households, companies, and the public sector. And we really, the focus of our work is on advice and information. We manage some funding programs. We encourage networking between our local and regional actors, a lot of training, seminars, mentoring on these types of programs, as much in Upper Austria as then through Prospect Plus and other activities beyond our borders. To give you an idea of where we're situated, so Upper Austria, you see here on the map, is one of the 9 Austrian regions. The capital is the city of Linz, with a bit over 200,000 inhabitants, and the population of the region, the global population, is 1.5 million, spread over 440 municipalities. So you can compare these numbers a bit to your own region. The particularity of Upper Austria is that we have this dual, we're a very industrial region. We're the industrial heartland of Austria, and we produce 25% of the country's industrial exports. So we also we work with manufacturing companies who are also working on increasing their energy efficiency and the uptake of renewables. But 50% of the population live in small municipalities of just a few thousand inhabitants. So we also support these over 400 municipalities who are on tight resources in regards to the number of staff and the available budget, and have a lot of public services still that they need to offer on their territory. And this is where EPC is also very interesting in our region for such municipalities who can implement energy efficiency measures without using their own budget, as Sylvia and Miguel have mentioned. So Upper Austria has quite a history of energy performance contracting. There's been a regional program that was started back in 1998 to support the market development of EPC. So it's a twofold approach where the main part of this program is facilitation services by our energy agency, where we support the clients and the ESCO companies, and we guide them through the development of their projects, the development of their contracts. And there's also a financial support from the regional government for projects who use the EPC model. This small amount of financial support doesn't make a project that isn't financially feasible will not become feasible because of this support. It really just is the regional government's way of showing that EPC is a trusted and good mechanism, and that if it is used, they will offer a small financial incentive to show that they also support this type of innovative financing. So since the end of the 1990s, there's been over 300 contracting projects in our region, about half of them in municipalities, but also half in companies and institutions, which shows that this type of model is not only interesting for public infrastructure, but is also interesting for private companies who will use EPC as an investment model in order to hold their capital and their funds available for other types of internal projects, whether it's R&D or extensions of their services or and products. So We've had projects mostly in the areas of street lighting, refurbishment, EPC in buildings and industry, renewable heat contracting, and we've triggered over EPC has triggered over 100 million euro investments in our region. We have about 30 ESCOs that are active or have done EPC projects in our region, but it didn't start out this way. So for all the participants in the room that are at the very starting, saying, you know, I don't know where the ESCOs are. Do we even have ESCOs? In Upper Austria, it was also very slow at the starting. There were not a lot of ESCOs available. There was not a lot of trust in this model. And that's where the facilitation service, with a lot of efforts on the side of the Energy Agency, took really the role of explaining and coaching and guiding the first projects to get on foot. And with time, EPC has now found its place in the portfolio of sustainable energy solutions and is readily used throughout the region. So what is energy performance contracting? You've gotten a drift also from Sylvia and Miguel's explanations. So it's a contractual arrangement between a client, so a municipality or a company, and a service provider, which we call an ESCO or an energy service company. The ESCO will typically finance and implement energy investments, so energy saving measures or the investment of an energy system. There's a variety of, we say they typically finance and implement, but there's a variety of different ways how the financing can take place, depending on whether the client or the ESCO can get the better rate at the banks, for example. So this is also flexible, and there's many options available. The ESCO then guarantees the energy savings in the contract, and they have the risk. They take on the risk, as Miguel has mentioned. They take on the technical risk and the financial risk of the projects, and they guarantee the savings in the contract. The investments and the capital costs, or part of the costs, for example, also referring to Miguel's project, where part of the costs were covered by EPC and the others by other financing mechanisms. The investments and capital costs are covered by the annual cost savings that occur through the energy efficiency measures. Typically, this EPC is especially interesting for projects that have very high energy savings potentials and therefore also shorter payback times. So we see contract durations for streetlight refurbishment of around 5 or 7 years, up to contracts of 15 or 18, maximum 20 years for buildings and other types of heating installations. And it's a contracting as a financing and operation model. So the ESCO is responsible, since they guarantee the amount of savings achieved. They also operate the systems, maintain the systems, and make sure that they are running optimally, and that the energy efficiency that is guaranteed in the contract is achieved throughout the complete of the contract duration. So these are the 2 points that really makes EPC different from other financing instruments. So number 1 is these contractually guaranteed savings. You, as a client, have the guarantee in your contract that a technical level of energy efficiency will be achieved throughout the duration of the contract. And there's a guarantee mechanism in the contract that is a financial consequence for the ESCO if these savings are not achieved. There's different ways how this guarantee can be implemented. For example, the client could withhold or reduce their payments to the ESCO to compensate for unachieved savings. There can also be a bank guarantee from the ESCO, which is handed over to the client at the starting of the contract. So if savings are not achieved, the client can go to the bank independently and very easily access part of that bank guarantee directly from the bank to compensate for a lacking of savings. We've also seen projects where the ESCO is under the obligation to adjust or replace the equipment until savings are achieved at their cost. Other than these 2 aspects, EPC can take many forms, and it can be adapted to the legal, economic, and social context of each of your regions. So this might be a difficult part when you see certain regulatory or legal barriers in your region, how to get by these barriers. But if you work on it and you look at it, there usually would be a way to work with these barriers or adapt the EPC contracts or form of the project to be suitable for your region as well. So other aspects of EPC projects, so things like who finances the project or where the money exactly comes from, who performs the audit or designs the system, who does the maintenance work, big project, small project, if there's extra savings that are achieved throughout the project. So if the building users are very well informed and have a high level of awareness and change their behavior, and therefore the building is overall requires less energy throughout the years of the contract, who saves and gains from these extra savings achieved, for example, can be put in the contract. The ESCO fees and the billing schedules, these are all elements that can be adapted and can be discussed between the ESCO and the client while developing a project. This is a bit of a different show of something Miguel has also presented, where it's sort of how does the energy performance contracting work along the contract period or along the project. So let's take an easy example of a municipality doing the refurbishment of their street lighting system to very efficient LED technology. So before their system was quite old, they had a high level of energy use and high energy costs. They discuss with an ESCO, decide that the ESCO will refurbish their lighting system. The ESCO designs the system and starts and implements the measures. So the measures that are implemented increase the energy efficiency of the system, and the level that you see here, the light blue and dark blue, represents the amount of energy savings and therefore the cost savings that are involved through this refurbishment project. Once the system has been completely refurbished and is operating, this is where the contract starts. And throughout the duration of the contract, the blue section, which is the cost savings that are achieved, are used by the ESCO to refinance the capital and investment costs. There can be two ways of, some municipalities would like to already benefit from some of these savings from the start. So they discuss with the ESCO to already benefit from a reduction of their electricity costs right at the starting of the contract period. This frees up some of their budget for other types of projects. In this case, then the contract duration might last a few years longer until the ESCO then is able to refinance the full of the project. Or so that's if the municipality wants to already benefit from cost savings right at the starting. If not, the municipality continues paying the same amount for their electricity even after the refurbishment's taken place, and the difference between the earlier cost savings and the earlier cost energy price and the actual energy costs is what the ESCO uses to reimburse the project. At the end of the contract period, the street lighting is under the ownership of the municipality. The municipality then benefits from the full amount of energy reductions, and their electricity costs are reduced for the future after EPC has then ended. I'll bring you here just step by step through the development of an EPC project based on the phases in Upper Austria. So in your regions, some of these might be a little different, but in Upper Austria, so the first step of a project is really the internal preparation phase of a municipality or of a company. So the client really has to do their homework of getting a good idea of an overview of their energy flows, their energy consumption, understanding what they want as a project, and with what type of project they're then approaching the ESCOs. They will then approach, we recommend that they approach two or three ESCOs who will then look at this data and at the large lines of the project and do a rough analysis. In Upper Austria, this rough analysis is usually free of charge. So the ESCO will do a general calculation of the feasibility, the technical and financial feasibility of the project, and will present this then to the client. Potentially, this is also where a tender will need to be done, depending on your public procurement rules. And the client then, after receiving these rough analysis, will decide in favor or against of the project. Maybe they'll decide to not use EPC and to look at other financing mechanisms. But if they decide, yes, okay, this seems good for us, this works for our project and for our organization, then they will select the ESCO based on these rough analysis, these offers from the ESCOs. Once the ESCO has been selected, this is where then both parties work together, going through the steps of the detailed analysis. So, of course, you're working with an ESCO because they're bringing on the technical expertise for the development, design, and implementation of this project. So in the detailed analysis, the ESCO will really develop the details, the technical planning of the project, and will present you how they would what type of technical measures they would implement in which way. And this is also the discussion of what specifications you would like to have, of course, in the infrastructure. Once the technical planning has been closed, then you can move on to developing the contract and discussing about the contract details. This is, again, requires for EPC a lot of transparency and a lot of partnership between both parties, between the ESCOs and the clients. We really say that EPC is a long-term partnership. So you'll be working with this ESCO throughout the whole contract duration, and at the same time, the ESCO will be working with you. So transparency and openness and trust is really the basics for a good and successful EPC project. You'll discuss out the details of the contract and sign the contract. Once the contract is signed, the ESCO will start implementing the measures over the course of weeks, months, or over the course of a year, depending on the project, of course. And once the measures have been implemented and the systems are operational, the contract duration starts. And from there on, the system will be operating, will be maintained, and it's the contracting rate. So it's a flow of money then from the ESCO from the client to the ESCO for over the duration of the contract. Since I assume that most of you watching here today would be on the client's side of an EPC project, I've just brought a slide with some learnings from our experience from our facilitation service. What are key success factors to look for and to work on from the client side? So first is we can't stress enough how proper internal preparation is key. So really do your homework first and make sure you understand your data and that you know also what you would like to get out of this project. For in a building, for example, also specifications like the color of the lighting in the office spaces or the temperature of the rooms in the building. These are specifications that will also affect not only your well-being in the building afterwards, but it also affects the energy efficiency levels. Of course, if a room is heated 2 degrees more, you need that amount more energy to heat your rooms, and you need to make sure that the calculations, the ESCO is the ESCO's calculations are taking into account really the true use of the most probable use of the building afterwards. So really the exact definition of your specifications and requirements, try to bring these into the project as early on as possible. Also elements like if you would like to involve your own staff, this is in municipalities often a topic. So they have a bit of a worry that the ESCO will come in and will take away tasks or work from some of their employees. And it's possible to integrate this into an EPC project where your staff will still do some of the maintenance works or work with the ESCO during the contract duration. If possible, compare ESCOs. Try to gather more than one offer, and select the right ESCO, where the right ESCO is not always the one with the lowest price. It's also not always the one that's offering the highest level of energy savings. It's important to look and see what, like I was saying, what specifications were used to calculate those energy savings. So the right ESCO is one that you feel confident about, that has the technical, the financial, and the legal knowledge for implementing this type of project. In the best case, they already have other successful projects that they can present and use as good practices. And they have the openness and the transparency to develop this project with you and develop the contract with you. Before last point would be to really understand the contract. This is something you're signing and it will be long-term. We don't enjoy working with standard contracts, and we don't recommend either trying to find a template and using that template one-to-one. Of course, these templates that we can find online are very helpful if you're at the starting of your ESCO and EPC learning process, to see how a contract could be built up, what type of content should be in a contract. And it's very important as a client that you really understand the elements of the contract, and that they're discussed between the client and the ESCO. So we've seen contracts in our region of 3 pages all the way up to 30 pages. It's not necessarily the length that counts, it's the content and the clarity of the content, and your understanding of the content. And then also, if you're able to do training or information awareness of the users of the system during the project, so whether it's the building users or your municipal staff that is doing the maintenance of the lighting, public lighting system, or whoever is working with the system afterwards, if you can involve them in the project and increase their awareness, it contributes to the overall success and outcome of a project. If you have access to advice and support from a third party, sort of like an energy agency or another type of regional development organization in your region, who can offer you external third party support in developing your project, it can maybe contribute to increasing your trust and your confidence moving on through the project, to have that extra bit of advice and helping hand. I brought some examples with me. I tried to choose some examples with different types of public and private infrastructure. So it just to give sort of an overview. One is the street lighting refurbishment in the city, or the village of Bad Schalachbach in Upper Austria. So Bad Schalachbach is a well-known health resort with a spa, wellness center, a cure center, and they're committed to climate protection. They decided to do a comprehensive refurbishment of their public lighting system. It was 790 lighting points, and it was refurbished to high efficiency LED. They reduced the installed capacity by more than 50%, from 55 kilowatts total installed capacity to 23. And it was an overall investment of 350,000 euro. What's interesting with this project is the local electrician who had been local electrician in the city for, I think his father owned the company and then he took over the company. He was very attached to his community. He decided to actually step up to the plate and to be an ESCO, although that wasn't something he had ever done before. And this was his first EPC project in his own village as the local electrician. And we supported him a lot in moving in towards offering this type of service and how to be an ESCO for this type of project. The contract duration is 10 years, and the 58% of electricity cost savings were achieved. There was also, you can see here that by street lighting refurbishment, something that's very interesting to take into account is not only the electricity cost savings, but also to look at your maintenance cost savings, which sometimes in this case were equal in their value, in their annual cost values. So the old lighting systems required much more maintenance and from the municipality, and therefore also a lot of costs in changing the bulbs and cleaning the lamps and just maintaining this old system. So if you consider all the savings that you're achieving as a municipality through your maintenance cost savings by going towards an LED system, which is much more user-friendly and long life, then you can pay back your refurbishment much quicker if you bring these maintenance cost savings into the EPC contract with you. This is a deep refurbishment of the Red Cross building in the city of Venice. I imagine you have similar organizations, if not the Red Cross, something similar in all of your regions. So this was a building that needed, it was in need of deep renovation. It had very high energy costs. Typical energy refurbishment measures took place. So a lot of thermal insulation on the exterior walls and the basement ceiling, the top floor ceiling. The windows were replaced, the installation of sun shadings, the old fossil fuel heating system was removed, and the building was connected to more efficient and cost-efficient district heating. Overall, it was about $500,000 of investments. And the ESCO that participated in this project was the local utility and energy provider called EWAC Wels. And the condition that the Red Cross had in this case was that the building need to stay open and operational during the entire project so that they could continue, of course, the very important services that they offer the community. And that was achieved, and the building stayed open the whole time. Contract duration of 15 years, and you can see here the amount of electricity costs of this CO2 savings of 54 tons. So this was really a typical deep renovation of a public building using EPC, combined as well with changing of the heating system to district heating. More public buildings, but I enjoy this example because it's the regional government themselves. The regional government of Upper Austria doesn't just support EPC through our program, our regional program, and the financing and the subsidy incentive, but also they use it themselves for their public buildings. And the regional government had a very active and motivated facility manager who decided to go through all of the buildings and to look after all of the easy, low-picking fruit of energy efficiency measures, to look after those himself with his team. And once he had went through the buildings and done all of the low investment measures and everything he could do with his technical team, he took his buildings and presented them to ESCOs and said, let's see how much additional energy savings an ESCO can get for us now. So they actually bundled they have 40 buildings that were involved in these projects. They bundled these buildings into 15 different EPC projects that took place throughout the years. These buildings are administrative buildings, road maintenance buildings, vocational schools, nursing homes, museums. And it's a mix of different implemented measures. So optimization of the heating systems, thermal insulation, conversion of the heating to renewables, and overall 15 projects. It was almost €5 million investments in total. But you see here from quite small projects with an investment of 60,000 up to projects of over $1 million. And this shows that smaller projects and larger projects can both be adapted and implemented using EPC. They also worked with different ESCOs throughout the years. Some names you might obviously recognize, like Kofili or Siemens. And finally, as a last example, this is another type of energy contracting I'd like to shortly present because it's very interesting. It's biomass, it's heat supply contracting. So far we've talked about energy performance contracting, where energy efficiency measures will be implemented, leading to energy savings. But this is a type of energy contracting where an ESCO will install a renewable heating system and will connect it to a building. It can be standalone as a heating project. It can also be combined to other types of energy efficiency measures that are taken, optimization of the system, maybe changing, insulating a building, doing some of those measures as well. But it could also just be like in this case. This is the owner of 2 cinema buildings in Steyr and Wels, who was very interested in heating his cinemas using local sustainable bioenergy. And an ESCO came, and you can see on the second photo here a gray box with 2 white doors. This is an external heating system where wood chip boilers are installed in this external box by the ESCO. The box is then, as an external heating system, it's connected to the cinema building, and the ESCO provides then regional, sustainable, CO2 neutral heat to the building for a contract duration that is fixed between the client and the ESCO. And in this, with this type of project, the owner of the building, who doesn't necessarily have the technical knowledge to optimally run a biomass heating system, they can still benefit from sustainable and regional heat, because the wood chips are supplied in this case by local farmers who just come and dump the wood chips into the storage container on a weekly basis. The cinema then has its fixed amount of heat at a fixed price over the contract duration, without having to have the hassle of the operating and tweaking and optimizing the system themselves. So last slide here, after this presentation, is really our main takeaways. That EPC is just one range of many possibilities of financing models. It's not appropriate for all projects and for all situations, but it can be used in many situations, and it's quite interesting. It's contracting as a long-term partnership, so there needs to be a lot of trust and openness between the partners. This is really essential. I try to keep in mind that EPC is flexible and can be adapted to your contexts and a context and your needs. It's just a way to find out how that can be done. And to get the most benefit from EPC as a client, you need to understand the mechanism well before going into the project. This will also increase your well-being and your confidence in this new type of financing model you're starting to use. And investing the necessary time in proper project development pays off in the end in your satisfaction and in the success of your project. So we often talk about bundling and doing very big, large EPC projects that are maybe interesting for international and large ESCOs, but keep in mind also that small can also be beautiful. And if you're at the starting of your EPC learning process, we recommend starting with smaller but good quality, well-prepared projects that maybe aren't financially as profitable, but that will permit you to get first projects started and successful projects that increases your confidence and the awareness and knowledge of EPC. And you can move on after that to bigger and better projects. So thank you very much. That was my presentation from Upper Austria.